Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drumfills Kafé. My name is Denis, and welcome to another episode for tonight's season. Before we begin, I would like you to go check out the social pages of Drumfills Kafé. That is the TikTok, the Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, Drumfills Kafé. Also, check out the website, drumfillscafe.com, to know all about the past seasons, what we're doing this season, all the editorials, the contents, the tips. It's all there at drumfillscafe.com. So go check it out. Tonight, my guest is a professional drummer, author, and educator who is making a name for herself in her channels called Sounds Like Emma and Love to Learn Drums. Her content offers good, solid drumming tips that is so refreshing, I think, in a sea of information overload in drumming. I think she does an awesome job. She's a graduate of popular music performance at the Academy of Contemporary Music, ACM, located in London, and is part of the band called Iola Mayu, and has many, many things to talk about today. So please welcome, without further ado, one of my favorite drumming context creator, Emma Taylor. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
How you doing?
Very good. And you?
I'm good. I'm glad to finally get together and talk drums and nerd out on drums. Finally,
we've made it happen, so we can finally talk about some stuff.
Well, I presume that you're in your little sort of studio where most of the stuff is created. Talk to me about where you are right now.
So this is where the content used to be created, or most of it anyway. I've only in the last couple months been able to move into a different room to be able to shoot content on my F-Note kit. But for the longest time, it was this room. And so it's probably quite recognizable. And that's why I've got, the posters and stuff over here. Right. But yes, this is also my office / bedroom / because my bed is actually up here. Is this a video podcast or is it an audio podcast?
It's a video for now, yes.
So that's my bed up there.
No way.
And there's I don't know if you can see it over here, just over here, this little thing. This is actually a boat winch, which I don't know what that says about me and what my dad thinks of me, but my dad built this bed.
I guess you're into boating or something?
No, believe it or not. But it just made sense to crank up the bed, and because otherwise, when I was younger, I had the same bed, but it had legs on it, and it was too short for me to sit underneath as I got taller.
Right.
I always had a drum kit under my bed.
Okay.
But now it's evolved, and finally I've been able to kind of stop filming in this room because it's such a small room. Right. I used to have my camera here, basically out the window, and it just wasn't quite enough room, and it would always be a bit of a frustrating process. So fortunately now I've been able to pinch a bedroom somewhere and turn that into a studio, which is all the videos with the white backgrounds.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, no, that's the thing I sort of liked is the sort of it doesn't matter. I don't have the lights and I don't have the whole the studio thing and 17 mics. It's just it's just me. I'm just having fun. I'm just creating stuff. Like it, don't like it, whatever. And I thought that's why it's so refreshing, because sometimes you watch videos and you're like, damn, I gotta buy this, I gotta get that. It's just
tell me about it. You've got the slow moving automatic gimbal and the action shots, and I'm like, I haven't got the time for that. I haven't got the energy.
Yeah,
I'm not the room. There wasn't the room before. So the only reason it's useful to have a better setup now is because so many people are watching. I personally have kind of been like, this has maybe a little bit better than we were doing before. Up the quality just a smidge, just a little bit. And also having the white backgrounds and everything means that I can put text over it, and it just is a bit more visually cohesive and stuff like that. So there are a couple of reasons, but I've had quite a lot of people say that they like the format of it. Literally, you get plonked in my room, essentially.
Yeah. And I think if I may say so, is that we're all doing this. All drummers are in this little room somewhere in the house. so we all can relate that. Oh yeah, I'm stuck in between the dryer and the whatever, and and that's my practice room. And so I think there's a relatable thing from the fact that your room, where it is, and that's what. Anyways, I think so, because for the longest time when I was a kid, that's what it was. I had this tiny little 10 by 10 thing, and of course this is sort of the 90s, so you had the huge cake, of course, and everything would just kind of fit snugly, so yeah, interesting. Well, let's talk a bit. Let's go back a bit. So how did it start for you? Because I think you started really young in terms of drumming. Like, what was your first drumming memory?
My first drumming memory, if we want to get real deep real quick, I think, I don't know how old I was, but I was very young, very like 3, if not younger, and I had a toy drum, and I don't remember specifically loving playing it, but I remember being distraught when it kind of just fell apart because it was made of cardboard and something just rubbish. But that was probably my first memory of equipment failing on me. Love that. But then when I was about 5, 6, my grandparents got me a toy drum kit, so one of those tiny things that isn't even, got a cymbal in the middle for some reason, and there's like, one of them. I don't even know if it had a kick drum, not a clue. But I played that so much that the heads turned into tape because they were just it so much. And then my mum was listening to me one day, and she was like, that doesn't sound awful. That actually sounds like something, So she asked if I wanted lessons, and I went to have like a taster lesson with somebody. I remember being in this big house somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and they came to the conclusion that I shouldn't have lessons yet for kind of 2 reasons.
Okay.
One, I couldn't reach the pedals, which I personally think isn't an excuse. I'm not bitter at all, but anyway. And then I couldn't focus enough on what they were saying. I was too busy going, "Oh my God, this is a drum kit! Wow, this is what," But I think, in hindsight now, having become a drum teacher, I think there's a certain, you can actually teach kids that young, but you just have to have a certain tack about it. But anyway, like I said, I'm not bitter. Definitely not bitter.
I feel like I should lean in. So let's talk about it. What's
and how does that make you feel? But then when I was about, I think 8 or 9, I started actual lessons, and then carried on having weekly lessons till I was about 18 or so.
Oh, okay, there you go.
The kind of tail end of that was me trying to do my grade 8 and stuff like that. Essentially. And I did, because of where I did my lessons, it was a normal primary school turned into a music school at the weekend. So there was lots of opportunities there to just play in different groups. I ended up playing in orchestra and a jazz band and a this and that. Not that I knew how to do any of that, and my sight reading was not up to snuff at all. But it was enough to kind of point me in the directions of the things I liked and the things I didn't. And it gave me quite a good grounding in a lot of things, because I don't know what kind of grading system you have for drums, but I did what's Trinity Guildhall, which at the time gave you quite a well-grounded, fleshed out kind of stylistic awareness of certain things. Like if someone said, "Oh, play something Latin," you'd go, and you'd be able to kind of
sound like it. Okay.
Yeah. So unlike rock and pop, I think, which used to be a bit more like it's rock and pop, they might have branched out now, I'm not really sure, but I definitely kind of had that route. So I was given quite a broad idea of things, so I can blag a reasonable amount of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was until I was about 18.
And I'm curious, what were you listening to music-wise during those years? I'm curious.
Oh God. So
is this an embarrassing question, or?
No, it's funny. I find it hilarious. But I remember when I first got my MP3 player, which changed my life. I think again I was about 8 or 9 or something. And I'd always loved music. Like in the car, I'd know exactly what tracks on what albums were this and that, and I could be skipped to this one and do this and this. And as soon as we were in the car, I was like, "Can we turn the music on? Can we do that now?" Like first thing. But when I got my own MP3 player, I remember I went through a phase of specifically Weird Al Yankovic. Don't ask why I didn't go for the originals. I don't know.
He's amazing. I love him.
Yes, he is. But as a choice, but I always loved disco, but I also always loved like some rock. I liked everything, honestly.
Okay.
I kind of discovered things as I got older. Obviously, my music taste started out as kind of my parents' music taste. So we had, I don't know, it kind of went from the Lord of the Rings soundtrack to Backstreet Boys to early Iron Maiden to whatever, 80s pop. And so there was quite a eclectic mix. But then as I got older, I started kind of getting into like the more niche disco and the, what else? I don't know.
I'm curious to know what niche disco is. Is it underground disco?
I wouldn't say it was more that I just realized that I started to know more about the music from my parents' era than they did, kind of thing. And I just started caring a lot more. And what I would do is I would just sit on YouTube and just keep going and finding new stuff, and definitely not ripping it off of YouTube and putting it on my MP3 player. Never once would I do that. No, that's highly illegal. Don't do that. But
I don't think you're alone on that one.
That's how I educated myself, and in that process, I didn't really realize how just it was so much my thing. I mean, as a kid, before I had YouTube and all that, I was glued to kind of music channels and music countdown channels, and just glued to music videos. And then when I was on YouTube, it was music documentaries or interviews or this or that, and it's the only thing I really gave a damn about. And so I didn't realize really until I got older, because it was just so much of who I am. That was all I really cared about. How did we get onto this?
Well, I was asking you just what were your influences and what did you like? But it's interesting. It's interesting though. I'm going to say something, and I'm going to. But disco isn't as easy as it looks to play, actually, because I've been in a cover band for about 2 years now, and we have a disco set. It's just mandatory. You just have to have a disco set.
You do.
You just have to have one.
Yeah. How many times can you play Good Times?
Yeah, and at first I was like, oh God, disco for 45 minutes. I'm just going to go to, and then eventually I was like, hang on a second. I think I'm flamming between my snare and my kick as I'm hitting them together. I'm like, oh damn, and then I'm actually not opening my hi-hat like consistently, and I'm like, okay, and I started to concentrate on that, and I was like, disco's hard. Like disco's harder than it.
It's also like it is hard, obviously. And I think one of my favorite things I ever did was when I started listening to stems of songs and kind of pulling apart what was going on and why they were so good. Like I've always appreciated the power of a 4 to the floor, because that is probably the most powerful groove. And it's, if you want to instantly connect with a group of people and like if an audience, like if you're playing a 4 to the floor, there's no way in hell, the rhythm blind as people may be, like they're gonna feel it whether they like it or not. It goes back to kind of like we all have a heartbeat, so we are rhythmic creatures whether we like it or not. But some people do convince you they're not.
So they don't have a natural rhythm, but it still can feel whatever it is you're doing.
It's just built in, essentially. But when I was like, there's certain things you can find where it's just like a masterclass of playing disco, like people like Bernard Purdie, for example. You can't really go much better than that. But there's a artist called the Reflex, and he does these really stripped back remixes of famous tunes, and I don't know how he gets the stems for these songs. Some of these songs you're like, how are you getting these for the Jacksons and Michael Jackson and like these really really big tunes? But I found some of them anyway. But
now, just to clarify, when you're saying stems, you mean like parts of the song? Okay.
So stems are the individual instrument tracks that you would have had, that the producer would have been mixing into the song. And there's a version that the Reflex did of I'm Every Woman by Shaka Khan, and when it strips back to the drum track and you can hear, it's just, if you want a good example of how to play disco, that's the one. That's the one, because he's not just doing a 4 to the floor, he's getting like doots, 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 like the choice to put the extra like just something there.
And when you're doing that rhythm, is it on the hi-hat or?
That's the kick drum. So you got.
Okay.
like those extra little somethings that aren't too much. And but yeah, it is interesting, and also the way they kind of recorded them I found interesting as well, because so often these disco tracks have like toms on the kind of with the snare drum or
right,
whatever,
yeah,
through the
to
whole
get that,
track, just to give it that extra something. So when you're trying to recreate that live, it's like, what extra ditty do I want to put in there without
well,
looking like one of those people,
yeah, how much layers do I want to do while doing my disco? Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
But it is one of my favorite things to play,
Hmm.
just because of the effect it has on the audience, because it's just so powerful. You
I'm
can't go wrong with it if you do it right.
no, exactly. I mean, the disco set works every time we play it. They just, people just shuffle to the dance floor, and we got them for at least 45 minutes, and it's like, okay, and they, somebody it ends on the chord, and I keep going as the carousel bunny, and they're still dancing on the floor, and so it's an interesting psychological thing, disco, when when you're playing it correctly. And I'm going to say something. I'm going to declare something. I think Dave Grohl is one of the best disco drummers ever, because if you listen to Everlong, it's a disco beat. It's literally a disco beat.
I think he's quoted as saying he's stolen it from.
Yeah, and he says that he's stolen stuff from the disco era. So when you put two together, you're like, oh, that's why he's doing always Four on the Floor with his kick, with a whole bunch of songs, actually.
I mean, if you want to hear a great example of disco and rock coming together in this really camp way, you've got bands like Kiss, where you've got I Was Made for Loving You, which is just a disco song, really. Like, it's so, like, rock from the 70s like that does sometimes just blend so perfectly that it's like, I don't know, where are we? What is going on? It's brilliant.
Cool. Well, I didn't think we were going to talk about disco, but that's amazing. Thank you for the disco little memory there. And quickly, just to finish a bit of your history. So you went to the Academy of Contemporary Music, which is in London. Talk to me about that experience and what happened there, and what did you learn? What did you remember from all that experience?
So kind of leading up to that, I wasn't just doing the things on Saturdays. I was in a band of friends, and also at school I was kind of the only drummer, so who was able to sight read and kind of a good enough ability to do school shows. So I ended up getting some musical theatre, amateur musical theatre experience, and kind of a bit of everything. And it was just a no-brainer to go, because I knew I was going to do music. There was no doubt about it. I did have a bit of a wobble in terms of, do I stay and do A levels? Because I would have left straight after GCSEs. I don't know what if we're talking to American listeners or.
I'm not. To be honest, I'm not sure. But A levels will be in high school. You mean, or in?
Yes. So when you're about 15, 16, you do your GCSEs, and you can leave school and then go and do a higher education thing after that point, or you can do your A levels, which is like sixth form, or I don't know what you'd call that in a different school.
In Canada, well, in Quebec, actually, I think we call that college or CEGEP. It's an in between high school and towards university. You do that 2-3 years of that.
And I nearly said yes to that simply because the school had just built a new auditorium and it looked delightful. But it turned out there would have only been about 3 people on the A-level course. So it was a bit like, maybe not. So at the age of 16, I was going. It wasn't actually London; it was Guildford. There's lots of campuses for ACM.
Okay.
But Guildford is the first one, and so I would get the train to there every day. But it was an interesting experience in terms of the knowledge that I gained. I'm still ripping that in all of my videos. So if my drum tutors from ACM ever watch any of the interviews that I do, I'm giving you props.
Okay.
I'm giving you props because I'm nicking most of it. Can't lie. And they've probably nicked it from everyone else, and that's how drumming works. But,
exactly. Yeah.
But I had an interesting experience at ACM because I felt very young. And so I was absolutely terrified of everything, and I didn't fully understand how terrified I was of everything. So I didn't take full advantage of the things I could have taken advantage of
Oh, I see. Okay.
at the time. But I still met all the people who have stuck. Alona, for example, who I'm in a band with, Alona Mayu, and then she is now doing admin and is basically my right hand woman, and she's I'm her right hand woman, kind of thing. So I met her and that whole friendship group around that and the band, and lots of amazing musicians who are now starting to kind of move up in the industry and become, kind of part of the front line, so to speak, in the bigger picture of the music industry, which is really interesting to see. But yeah, I met a lot of good people and I got loads of great experience, but I didn't quite, take advantage as much as I could. And I think now, if I had, potentially I would have ended up being more of a session drummer, and I don't think I really wanted that. So I think it may have worked in my favor in certain ways. That might just be me trying to think of it in a positive light.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't kick yourself so hard because, at a certain age, I mean, and I'll say this again, most drummers are very shy. We want to just be in the background and we just, just want to have fun. Don't see particular selves as a singer or whatever. So I relate to what you're saying, because I was pretty much the same. I would go to my teacher back then and I'd be literally just like almost looking at the floor sort of thing. And, because you're like, I want this so bad, but please, please help me, but also don't tell me I suck, because that would hurt, and that's that sort of mentality sort of thing. And you're trying to you're just trying to build that confidence and to build yourself.
For sure. I mean, I barely knew who I was at that point. If you're 16 going on, I left when I was about 19. So I technically graduated from university at 19 with a degree. And like, what the hell are you supposed to do at that point, But it was interesting because fortunately my playing ability meant that it wasn't, that the actual academic side of it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And so it was just the other side of the social side of things that I really had a hard time with. But I ended up, it was quite funny, and I don't know, I'm not going to name any names, but there was a tutor at ACM when I was there, and this wasn't the year I graduated, but it was the year after I graduated. All the friends I met were the year below me, because I did shortened course and got there early instead of doing A levels and all that stuff, technicalities. But a tutor came up to me who was at this graduation. He was drunk as a skunk.
Oh, really? Jeez. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, he was known for liking a drink. Okay. And anyway, he came up to me and was just kind of like, "You were one of the most underrated drummers in your year." And I was like, "Thank you." I didn't have a clue. I was being so hard on myself the whole time. And so, what? I'll take that. I won't shame him into who he was, but anyone who went to ACM and knew of me / anyone who knew of my friendship group knows who that is. But yes, so.
Well, we'll thank him. Yeah, thank him or her. I'm not sure.
Yes, we'll keep it, and it's not very specific, but it's interesting actually. You mentioned like kind of him or her, but I was the only. I think in the whole time I was there, maybe my class or my year group had 2 or 3 female drummers, maybe.
Well, maybe. That's a topic I'm always curious, but I also don't want to emphasize it, because it's, if you put emphasis on it, the fact that there's more guys than girls in the drumming community, that sort of thing.
Personally, I've been very fortunate. I was discussing this actually with a group of female drummers who are probably 10-ish years old, if not more, older than me. And we were discussing our different experiences in the industry, and I've been very fortunate. I think my generation of drummers coming up and the ones after me are in a much better position, because I personally have never, to my face anyway, encountered any form of sexism or kind of disparaging anything, but just because I'm a woman, kind of thing. I've been very fortunate in that regard. Even at ACM, there was never anything.
Well, that's nice.
And I don't know if that was potentially because I could already play. I think if perhaps I weren't as good a playing ability, maybe there'll be a different treatment, because like if you look at, if a guy wasn't very good or a girl wasn't very good, would they have different experiences? I don't know. But for me, I've never had that. Whereas the women I was speaking to about it, they've definitely had their kind of touches with different kind of opinions on that. So it's changed
about
in a very
yeah.
short space of time.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's changed in a very short space of time, which is
Well,
great, obviously.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've had interviews with other female drummers, and I've asked that question just out of curiosity, if they're taking it seriously, just as any other a guy. And so, as you say, it's sort of half and half. Some of them are like, "Oh, I've never had that," and some of them are like, "Well, yeah, I've got some guys who are like, oh, you hit like a girl, or oh, blah, 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 you can't play this, blah, blah,
Thank
blah."
you, I
And
guess.
well, no, and and I'm like, and I find it odd, but then again, I'm a guy. I can't speak for but and I sort of stopped asking the question because I don't want to put emphasis on it, but it's good to hear that in your case it wasn't the case, and that it seems to be. I mean, there's so many amazing female drummers these days. It's just
Oh my god,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't even know why we would go into the whole like, oh, it's a girl. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many
Honestly,
of them.
it really makes absolutely no sense
Yeah.
whatsoever at all. It's odd, isn't
I mean,
it?
I just think of I can't. Of course, I'm blanking out right now, but Santana's wife and drummer who played for Lenny Kravitz.
Cindy Blackman.
Yes, for instance. I mean, I could watch Cindy Blackman. She just has that groove and that, for instance, and I'm just like, wow. Every time I'm just in a wow. Yeah, for instance. Well, that's great. What happens next? When does the whole being on YouTube, and do you play some bands, or how does it come about from after graduating to what did you do afterwards?
I'd say because I graduated when I was about 19. There was some time of what I call farting about. Trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
What do you want to do?
I ended up doing again some kind of Amdram drum stuff just because I was filling my time kind of thing. I really dug my heels in for a long time about teaching, because I had somewhere picked up the kind of if you fail you teach kind of point of view on
it's
things.
not
And yeah,
it's not given
it's a
to
tricky one.
everyone. Yeah, it's not given to everyone to be a teacher, to be quite honest. I've had some
It's
amazing
true. It is
drummers that don't really teach well.
Yeah.
So
There's plenty.
but
I didn't really realize like how difficult some people find it, because for me it's always, I'm not really thinking about it when I'm doing it, because in my head I've always been kind of chatting to people when I'm playing anyway. Like there's always been, if I've been trying to learn something, I've weirdly always also trying to, like especially as a kid, I was kind of explaining it outwardly as if there were people there, not saying it out loud but thinking it. So that, if that was ever a foreshadowing kind of thing. But yeah, some people just don't, and it baffles me. It really does.
for some people, they don't understand why someone can't play this or can't do that, or and they get frustrated, and or just don't have the way to communicate it. I mean, the communication is one of those things.
Self-taught, because I couldn't teach someone how to sing, for example, or play piano. Not that I play it to that much of a degree, but like, because I've had the length of time having lessons and being, you don't only learn how to play the instrument, you get taught how to teach, because you're being shown the example all the time, which is something I didn't realize until I started doing it myself. And yeah, so basically I was in a band with a loner, and we were building that up and just getting some experience, playing some gigs, doing music videos, and working out how to make a band happen, basically. How to do the social media, how to do this,
Right.
And I found that I had more of a leaning towards the content creation. I enjoyed editing videos and kind of helping doing the promo and stuff like that. But obviously we were just shouting at the void, so it didn't really have any impact. But I discovered I really liked it. And I was having a pretty hard time, because I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. At ACM, you're kind of, and I think at a lot of music schools, you're kind of funneled down the, like, you want to be a session musician, right? If you want to be a session musician, you've got to do this. And so I was kind of in that boat of like, well, I don't really want to do these things, but this is the only thing that I can do, kind of thing. Like, I don't, like, for me, for example, I remember having lectures about what snare drums and cymbals you should use to have
Okay.
certain sounds and certain styles. And if you're in a studio and they ask you to do this, what would you do? And I just remember like thinking, I don't care. I just don't care. I can't make
Okay.
myself. And I used to beat myself up so hard about it. But I can't force myself to be a gearhead. I'm just not that bothered.
No, that's
Especially as someone who's played on
yeah.
electric for so long. I just don't care. Does it sound good? Yes, in which case I'll play it. If not, I'll try and do something about it. And even with the content and kind of creating the videos I do, for a long time I was kicking myself and being like, I should know more. I should know everything about everything, because I'm in this kind of heightened position of like, I'm this person who informs people about things, and therefore I should know everything. And I can't force myself to be interested. So I've kind of put less pressure on myself on that front. But anyway, I keep diverging.
No, it's okay. But I do have to agree with you. It's impossible to know everything. I mean,
Exactly.
it's impossible and everything, and but there is that anxiety, almost that pressure, because Channel X is doing this, and they just did a review of whatever, and they did whatever, and you're like, oh my god, like I haven't done that, and should I do that? And should I,
it's kind of an imposter syndrome, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know everything, and I'm not this super nerd about drummers and who they are and what people's names are and what they did and what the album was and what snare drum they used on that album. I don't care. I just don't care.
I think that's healthy, because we got so hung up on the fact that the brass bell was used on this album and the blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, it's sure, okay, it's good to know which snares make what sounds, but in the end, the average listener isn't going to go, oh, brass bell and that disco beat, it's just going to go, and
if you're doing that, you're also probably more likely that you're a producer.
True.
I have a friend of mine, Ryan, 105mm Studios, who does all the production for the Alona stuff, and he's one of those people. He was watching a show the other day with Alona, and he was picking out the drum sample pack that they used on this obscure, and he was right as well, and it was just like, that's never going to be me. That's never once going to be me.
Yeah. That's okay.
So I think you just have to be a different kind of caliber of person. And for me as well, I've put myself in too much of a box as well, because for so long I've been the one who plays drums, but I'm a musician. I play multiple instruments. I sing, I do all this. And actually, I care more about vocalists. I've never cared about the drummers or their history. Like, yes, I can appreciate fantastic playing, and I can pick out what techniques they're using and stuff like that. And maybe if I watch more of them, I'd have a greater appreciation. Who knows? But I've always been more vocally performance-led. And so my interest is actually there, opposed to the technicalities of kind of being bogged down in cymbals and snare drums and gear and
that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's fine.
But it took a long time to figure that out, especially when you go to uni to do that specific. It's very easy to put yourself in a box like that. For sure. So if anyone's out there listening who's just like sat in a drummer box and like, oh, this doesn't quite fit, that might be why.
I mean, we can talk about it later, but there's some up and coming drummers who, I mean, they have pieces of scrap when they're drumming on whatever they're drumming, and they sound amazing, and I'm referencing like Lewis Cole and what's his name,
my god,
DJ Beck and and you look at the drum set, and it's like it's probably something he picked up in the trash somewhere, and he's putting covers on top of it, but again, it makes it sound amazing, because it's that whole thing, is that the drums are the drummer, what's that? Yeah,
it's the drummer is the short answer, and a hell of a lot of compression. That's what it is.
Yeah, compression is the thing these days.
Compression is king.
Yeah, but going back, just to keep us in a semi-straight line, it's okay.
Absolutely, just tangenting today.
It's okay.
Got so much to say, clearly. Okay,
it's okay, but okay. So you're detecting that you want to teach, so that's amazing. So when does it become that you want to do all this content, and so it was a natural progression towards that, is what you're saying?
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
No, okay.
I was already in my own time, and this is kind of around when COVID happened. So I turned 21, and then 2 weeks later COVID happened, which is, happy birthday to me. Gee.
Yeah.
So we obviously had all this free time on our hands. I had been doing a job at a cafe and kind of was through COVID and wasn't happy doing it. So that was a bit of a motivator to just be like, what do I do? I've got to do something.
Right.
And so with all that spare time, I was starting to make little like videos, like just making content. Like one of them was about me learning how to longboard for a while, and things. It just meant that I started learning how to use editing software and discovering that I really liked it. And this is before the idea of doing drum related teaching content came up, because again, I was still kind of heels in the dirt, kind of like, I don't really want to be a teacher. I don't want to do that. And I didn't put together that like I could be a teacher and also technically kind of be performing to a large amount of people at the same time, like and reaching a large audience of people and affecting a large audience of people, because that's what I knew I wanted to do as a performer. Like I want to be able to give outwardly to as many people as possible and positively affect them in that light. But to me, teaching was like one-to-one in a room with someone who doesn't want to be there kind of thing, which is, in some cases, like I really became a music teacher in a secondary school. And it was, I did seriously consider it, because there's part of it that is fulfilling, but most of the time it's really, really not. And hats off to anyone who's doing that. I mean, respect. But I just couldn't hack it. But anyway, right, I will stop.
It's okay.
So how/why did I get into making social media content about drums? Basically, I was working for a music charity, and one of the tutors there, he was a really nice guy called Louis, and he knew a guy called Chris. And Chris was looking for, who is the owner of Alpyne Music and my kind of co-business partner, kind of my dude, essentially.
And quickly, Alpyne Music is sort of a teaching, a music academy.
Yes, it's online. So originally it started out as like a site for resources for music teachers. And now it's kind of turned into the kind of father-mother company of Love to Learn Drums, essentially. And Chris was looking for music tutors, because originally it was all just an online music school. So you would sign up with Alpyne and you would become a music teacher online, and you would get some students if you made online content. And that was the whole idea, is that Chris would help you build your own social media following that was yours and you owned it.
Oh, cool.
And then that would build trust in like an audience, and then people would hopefully come to you for lessons. That was the idea. And so that's a very abbreviated story as well, but fundamentally it actually took quite a while for me to get students, but the social media kind of wagon, like the following started to tick up. I started on just TikTok originally, because we were like, well, let's pick the fastest growing platform, see what happens. And I don't know how long it was and how many followers I had before I also started posting on Instagram. But it was like, that was more of a security blanket, because it was like, if TikTok gets, banned in America, which is looking at more, it's always like, will they, won't they?
Yeah, they're going towards there, unfortunately. Yeah.
So it's kind of, it was just a safety blanket essentially, and it just made sense. And then that started growing, and we broke it up into, originally it was just Sounds Like Emma, and then it was Love to Learn Drums, because we were like, well, we may as well have two channels of the same thing, because you can just be a collaborator on posts and you get the same amount, like you just get double the
views.
Essentially, well, coverage, basically. You have two audiences you're kind of going out to.
Oh, you mean between TikTok and Instagram?
Oh, sorry, no. Just on Instagram. And then, because also it meant that I could still have Sounds Like Emma, and if I want to post, like band-related stuff or whatever, the people who are just there for drums on Love to Learn Drums wouldn't really care about. It's still mine, essentially. So if I end up doing anything weird or wacky, like, or a solo project or something, not that I'm not doing anything weird or wacky.
You can own it as Emma and not
exactly. And then there was Facebook, and then it took us a long time to go to YouTube. because we've done so much short form content, and the format of my videos and how it all works, just it's short and snappy for a reason, and it works because it's short and snappy.
Well, I want to ask the question: why short and snappy? I'm curious. That seems to be purposely made that way? I'm curious.
Because, well, for me anyway, I was just, first of all, I couldn't be bothered to sit down and think of a script or what to say that was just farting about when you don't need to. Like, I just haven't got the attention span quite fast. I'm truly a child of this generation. I haven't got the time. Other things to do, like scroll through another video, But also, I think the common thing people feel towards YouTube tutorials, for example, there's just too much talking. Just show me the thing. Just show me the thing. It's not that complicated. And I do go in more depth in my YouTube videos because there are a lot of things to talk about when it comes to talking about the technical side, which is why I'm glad we have the YouTube channel. But it's a different beast because the format we've currently got is kind of essentially 3 shorts in one video. That's kind of all it really is, and it means I can talk in more depth. There's nothing wrong with that. But we really had to think about what we wanted to do because it was a change. And we didn't know how YouTube worked. Going from short form to long form.
Right.
There's a lot of different factors to think about and how you want to hook people in, but keep them entertained. And
because as you point out, a minute, sure, but 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I've had a channel for longest time on YouTube, and if I look at my stats by minute and a half, 2 minutes, it starts to weave off in terms of the stats of people's attention, sort of thing. I don't know how they calculate that, but that's what I'm shown. Yeah. So I understand what you're trying to say. Yeah.
So it's. I think I was talking to Alona, and I think this year in June or July we'll be coming up for 3 years. I think if that's right.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like 3 years. I keep saying 2, so it might be 2, but it must have been 2021. So yeah, it must be 3 now.
Well, it's rather impressive because being the interviewer, I did look up your stats, and yes, you as of yesterday you had 295.1 thousand followers just on TikTok and about 3 million likes. So that's just amazing.
It starts to not make sense very quickly. Like the amount of people we're talking about, it just doesn't. I'm sat in my bedroom. I'm just chilling. What do you mean? There's 300,000 people, on one platform? It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, let's talk about. I mean, you talk about stuff that I think is very interesting. Like you were talking earlier about stuff that you're nicking everything that you took from ACM. But honestly, there's a couple of videos. Like there's one where you're talking about combos of playing 5s or combos of 5s and 3s, and I'm like, and my first thought is like, oh my god, I learned that from my teacher, from one of my teachers. And it's like, okay, so I get what you're talking about. So we're sort of just kind of, yes, we're nicking, but we're sort of passing the information from one generation to another. And I don't know of many who actually talk about that stuff and do it in a concise way that's entertaining, but also informative. And that's what I think is the sort of secret, if I may be so bold to say, is that sort of, it's a minute, but everything's there. It's entertaining. You have an amazing sense of humor, by the way. It's just every time I looked at I think the video where you're talking about broken doubles, and you're making jokes about let's think about the children, and anyways, and that keeps me in.
I mean, I do that more from if I'm making myself laugh, then I know other people are going to laugh. Essentially, and that's the energy you want to bring to it. I agree that the magic source, so to speak, is the information plus personality, because people are there for the person. The information, yes, but like if it's presented in a dry way, no one's going to care.
No, right? If you're like, this is 5, this is 3, put them together. Yeah. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Well, some people get on with that. Some people will find me unbelievably irritating, and that's okay. And that's like a common format you see is like, oh, it's just the person playing whatever exercise this is with the notation above it. And some people, especially for me as a drummer, actually, I'd probably prefer that because I'm like, I'd rather screenshot that and sort it out myself instead of having someone kind of hold my hand through it and make it entertaining and encourage me to sit down at the drum kit. So it's just different strokes for different folks.
But I think that combination makes it that it's not just for drummers, you know. I mean, I'm sure there's some viewers that you have, or probably not drummers, but just
a lot of them are.
Yeah, like what you do, you know, and they just follow you even though they're not drummers, you know. So
Well, so I've had quite a few people who say like it's been my videos that have helped them kind of just bite the bullet and either buy a drum kit or get back to drumming, or kind of that's been the thing that pushes them over the edge.
Amazing.
Because it's so, well, learning an instrument, especially if you're self-taught, I find this with guitar, is that there's just so much that you could learn that it gets overwhelming and you don't know where to kind of start, when you should stick to your guns and really learn the thing, or just move on to something new. And especially trying to do that as an adult instead of as a kid. I do remember learning drums, but I don't remember like the man hours, so to speak. I just did it.
You didn't calculate them.
I remember learning them. But I also do. It's a bit odd. But whereas with guitar, I have been conscious for every single minute at which I've been trying to play bloody scales, bloody cage system wide. You know, like it's just so I do empathise, kind of with the audience, because I get it.
Right.
And I think that helps, because when you're the person kind of directing people, you can be like, I'm talking to you, person. I know exactly how you, person, feel. And that helps with the kind of hooking people in as well. It's like, I relate to you. I get you. I'm talking to you. And this is for you.
Yeah. But I think that personality of, you know, I'm not saying I'm better, you know, that sort of humbleness comes out as well. And yeah.
Oh, it's insane. Can you imagine the comments I would get if I was like, I am the distinctive person who has the answer that you need? Apart from, obviously, if I was saying like that, it would be sarky. Because I just couldn't do that. Also the flack. Like, there was one time I did a video about reggae.
Right.
Jesus, never again.
Really? Okay.
It's just a basic, like a one drop, but it was quarter notes, so it's even more basic.
Right.
And the amount of people who are like, that's not reggae. And I'm like, it's not about that. Let's get the basic concept down, go away. But you know what? It got 300,000 views. So who's the winner? Really?
There you go.
But yeah. So it's just, you have to be conscious of that as well.
Yeah.
And I'm in this in between of like, do you put this disclaimer of like, just to clarify, I'm not an expert in this topic, I waste valuable seconds of just time explaining that before cancelled you left where it shouldn't be.
You do that in the funny way though, where basically the explanation goes by so fast that you can't even read it, which I thought was hilarious. So
And again, if I edit in a way that makes me laugh, so like, I've got to make it entertaining when I'm doing however many edits. It's just like, I've got to keep myself sane somehow.
Very quickly, because I know some of my audience members will want to know, and not go too much into it, but what is the program and how do you edit those 1 minute videos? What's the program?
So is it, we say a quick explanation, but essentially it's CapCut. That's the short answer.
Okay.
But right now it goes through 3 people. So originally it was just me, and it was me editing on the TikTok editor, so painstakingly.
Really? Wow.
That's why if you watch the really, really old ones, like the letters are kind of skewed with and all over the place, because if you press the wrong button, it would delete the whole thing. Or kind of like glitching out, it would delete the whole thing. And that's why my original videos were so simple as well, because I couldn't do it. And so eventually I discovered CapCut, thank God. And so it's always been me doing the text side of things.
Okay.
But it was about a year ago we brought on Sean, who's a friend of mine, and now he takes essentially the raw footage. So I film the video and all the bloopers and all the rubbish, and he has a great time of editing them out and putting it into a kind of condensed-ish video that I then tweak a little bit if I want to, add all the effects, add all the music, because sometimes if you ever hear music in the background, I've played it. So apart from maybe the odd thing that I've taken from the kind of library that CapCut's got. And then if it needs some extra zhuzh, or like it needs cutting down to even shorter than it already is for YouTube Shorts, because that's a minute limit. So that goes through Chris. So it goes through 3 people, because if one person had to do it, which it used to be me, I would have gone insane.
Because because you have a lot of videos. I mean, there's a lot of content.
A video going out every single day on every platform, and if not more.
Yeah.
YouTube Shorts might be. I think that's one a day, and then we have long videos going out as well.
Yeah. So my last question about that is, how do you decide? Okay, I'm going to talk about this today, or is it just like a spur of the moment sort of thing, or is it? How do you come up with your ideas?
It used to be the original batches. I'd have some loose ideas, and then I'd just sit staring blankly at the camera and going, there, yeah. And then do that.
Okay.
Which led to a lot of dead footage, which was a nightmare to edit. But it got me over the kind of anxiety of thinking about it too much in advance and trying to tweak it too much. But now what I do is I have a really messy Google Sheet document, and it's called Videos to Film, and I write all my ideas for things in a list, and I just tick them off as I go.
That's good.
I don't script anything. Literally, it's all off the cuff, and that's why there's so many edits, because I go kind of sentence by sentence, or sometimes it just comes out and it's like that.
Okay.
But if I'm trying to explain a concept, it comes out in sentences, and sometimes I might re-record it again, like now that I've got the format and I get it. Or sometimes it's just up to Sean to make me look like I'm intelligent and not insane. Thanks, Sean. Love to you. So yeah, eventually we'll have to post the blooper reel, because there is
a lot.
Cannot express. I cannot. Oh, if you think I'm actually really good at this, you'd be shocked. If you watch the raw footage, you would be amazed. You would think, how is this woman stringing sentences together? Miracle.
Look, when I started this podcast thing, the intro would last me like 10 minutes, because I'd be like, "Hi, everybody." Oh, God.
Yeah. That's the other thing with long form. It just feels like if you're doing loads of shortcuts all the time, it just feels wrong. You feel like you should be more, with it. I've got better at it over time. It used to be really bad. It used to be shocking.
I think we're all in the same boat. I used to do the covers, but when I started doing covers, it was like, I think I'm at take 20, and I still screwed up something. But yeah. Yeah, especially if you're a perfectionist like most people. Yeah, that is one of my unfortunate. I didn't hit it enough hard. Oh, I missed this.
Yeah. Fix it in post. It'll be fine.
No.
Mike's distorting. Fix it in post.
No.
Auto-tune completely, practically a different key. Fix it in post.
No. I think I'm old school on that one. It's like, if it doesn't sound right in the room, I don't feel like spending half an hour cutting it out and then putting I
am semi-joking. I record all my drums when I'm doing tracks or whatever. I do MIDI and just sample them, because I'm just like, it gets in the way of the creative process, and I'd just rather have them done. Yeah.
Well, speaking of, let's talk equipment, because even though you said you're not an equipment thing, was it just a natural, because of the size of your room, to go to a V drum? And is it just it's just the ease of basically everything sounds right? I don't have to tune. I don't have to put mics. That's pretty okay. So,
all of that. And also the reason I have quite a low setup as well. I've actually raised the high tom and the mid tom more than they used to be, because that line where the not to point out, but where the YouTube award is, that's where the bed comes down to.
Okay.
And so obviously this crash cymbal here can't be any higher than that.
Right.
So I've naturally got a very low setup, and I've always had to have V drums, because we don't have a space where I could have an acoustic kit. So it takes so much room. I would, like you say, have to tune it. It just would have been a nightmare. So it has been born of necessity. 100%. But Chris has a theory that it's made potentially me a better player, because it makes you a lot more, because it's right in your ears and in high definition. You get to hear everything so much clearer. They can really hear when you're out. I mean, I think that personally is an insult, and I think I was just born an amazing drummer.
No, but I have one, and I use it for my shows. And yes, they do correct you sometimes when you're not hitting it.
It shows you up. It really does.
Yeah.
It can do.
Yeah. When you're not hitting when you're not hitting it, it'll help you, or it's just like, oh, I didn't hear what you wanted to do there. So
Yeah, and the lack of dynamics as well can be tricky sometimes. If you've got a cheaper electronic kit and you're just like, this is a ghost note, and it goes bang. It's like, great.
Yeah. Curious, very quickly, what edition is it? Is it a D25 to a 20? Is an older one?
This is a TD30.
Oh, cool.
So I think I don't know how old that is now. Is it about?
I think about a decade. So
but it's bloody brilliant. It's amazing. I stand by it. It's great, especially the snare drum with the dynamics around the edge, with the extra kind of sound. I love it. But recently in videos, I've moved away from Roland and gone to F Note. They are so amazing.
Talk to me about that, because that's a lesser known drum kit.
Yes. So F Note, they're two people who used to work for Roland, went and made their own company, and obviously decided they could do it better. And we kind of got to chatting, and I've ended up with an amazing drum kit. I think the only thing I'd say about them is that right now they don't have a lower range, so it's hard for me as someone who's teaching a lot of beginners and talking to people, being like, what drum kit should I buy? I still feel like I'm directing people to Roland right now,
right? Because they have the smaller ones.
Well, they have the smaller, less budget kind of things, and there's a lot more secondhand stuff out on the market, and that's what F Note's for. But F Note, what I've just seen that they've done really well that I really like is the cymbals. The cymbals are really good.
Okay.
Like they've done something, the technology inside them, they've done something so it's got like a secondary like cymbal or something inside, so when you hit it you actually see the wobble like a normal cymbal.
Oh, the pad. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. It's really, really cool.
Okay.
So I think it's really, really good. It is odd adjusting though, because I'm used to playing on this kit,
right,
and also used to this kick drum specifically, because it's against a wall, it's not going anywhere. Whereas this other one is not, and so it just feels it feels so much bouncier and so much more. Just it feels so alien to me. It's taken a lot of time to adjust.
I see more of an acoustic feel to it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it is tricky with e-drums. I think it always probably will be. Just the feel difference compared to acoustic is just how do you begin to tackle that?
Yeah, well, I mean, on the mesh heads, it's similar to acoustic in the sense that they do have that bounce compared to the rubber ones, which is what my old kit has.
Mine used to as well. I had a TD3.
Yeah, and that just goes,
Yeah, but because they're so the pads are obviously like practice pads, right? So right. I think my doubles developed quite a lot because I was able to actually get the rebound I needed off of them.
But yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, okay, I didn't know about that. So anybody who's interested into a different drum company, check out F Note. Are they so far just available UK, or is it just?
It can be quite tricky to get them, I think, in the UK, but you can definitely check it out. I think they're working on the distribution in the UK. Mine, I think, was one of the only ones in the country.
Really? Wow.
That made me feel special. If I didn't have an ego before then. But yeah, they're in our distribution guys, Germany, so that's Europe, and they're built in Japan, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think they do have American distributors, so if you're that side of the world, I think they do have them. Yeah,
we'll check them out. Let's talk about teaching. Let's do the teaching thing, because you don't just teach online, which you do very, very well. You also teach one-to-one. Now, I'm a different generation. If you wanted to learn something back in the day, you had to go see a teacher, and I'm going to date myself, get a VHS cassette. Stick that in and just watch it and just play rewind sort of thing. Today, there's so much information. There's so many people out there saying, do this, da. Are this generation interested in taking a one-to-one lesson, or is the thought process as well, I'm just going to go on YouTube and see whoever's doing what and do it that way? Is there still people wanting the one-on-one lesson in your opinion?
For sure. I mean, I think again, because of the nature of the audience, I don't have that many people come to me who are kind of mid-20s. It's usually either parents of kids, or kind of, we're talking, I don't know, 30s and up. So
Really interesting. Okay.
I think people will always appreciate one-to-one. Maybe as kind of the VR world starts to develop, then it'll become. I mean, it's looking more that way anyway, but it won't be there yet. But the struggle I find online is that obviously you can't be really looking at that person's hands that isn't kind of pixelated and trying to articulate that kind of thing, and you can't literally physically, not that you usually have to, but like move someone's wrist and go no this, especially with younger kids, trying to kind of physically like keep their attention and be with them and hold that energy. It doesn't quite articulate the same way, but you still, like, it means you can talk to those people who you would never ever otherwise be able to. Like, most of my students are all around the world and have different time zones, and it's all over the place,
Cool.
But I teach one-to-one 1 day a week at a place called the School of Drumming in Woking, and I really appreciate doing that because it is a different teaching style and environment. Especially, I'd say if there was one thing, you can do almost anything online and teach people, and you can do that, but the one thing is playing to songs, like in real time. Unless you've got the student playing the music on their end and they're playing along to it, if they can hack that, depending on the age of the student, then that can work. But when you're trying to get the more subtle, like maybe dynamics or kind of just more advanced technique, it can be hard to articulate.
To do it, online, no, for sure.
Without like endless explaining. It's just there's extra explaining that has to be done, essentially. But it far outweighs the kind of downside, because you get to talk to people you never would, and it means people can actually do drum lessons where they otherwise wouldn't be able to. They finish work late, they do this, they do that, life happens. So
right,
if it's between online lessons and not playing with drum lessons, like it's definitely worth it for sure. And I mean, things like, there was a site, I forgot what it's called, but you can like get drum lessons with Steve Gadd, for example, a very high price. I think it was like $8 a minute or something. But there's a Steve Gadd we're talking about.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. I would.
Well, I mean, I saw one of his tours, and and the bus from Steve Gadd said "message from Gadd," so it just gives you an idea. I thought it was hilarious because he's from New York. So, anyways, but it gives you an idea of how much Steve Gadd is Steve Gadd. Yeah,
no, that's brilliant. I think like having online lessons allows you to have lessons with people like that, So, and there's definite value in that for sure, especially if you're, say, like a specialist in something. Like if you specifically like odd time signature jazz, left hand led with something, just to be odd, and you're missing one hand, like you could potentially find someone online, whereas one-to-one would be impossible, right? Especially left-hand players.
Well, you have to go, like I said, in my day, like if I wanted to, like I'm about 6 hours from Berkeley College in Boston. So if I wanted to take a lesson, with such and such, I had to go to Boston to take a lesson with such and such. And it's not cheap. It's 6 hours of travel. It's this much money for that teacher. It's it's a whole weekend sort of thing. And of course the experience is amazing. It's truly amazing.
I was going to say, being that close to Berkeley, of all places, it's like, that's great.
It's truly amazing, but it is with the technology of today, it's just a message away, a video, whatever, chat away, and it's done. But I was just curious to know, because you're a very young generation, and what is that generation's mentality towards learning drums? Is it all towards videos, or is it mostly just the value of one-to-one, as you say, is still there for that generation?
I think people of kind of my age bracket and younger will be much more tech savvy and comfortable with communicating online, because, for example, again, talking about COVID, but during lockdown, my friendship group was just on Discord talking to each other all the time, so we weren't separate. And so it's the same thing of like being, I mean, some people call it chronically online, but it's like, it's not that weird a thing anymore. So being able to, and people have good enough like phones and like, so the tech barrier isn't so much there. But I'd say because I have such a broad range of students, it's hard to like give it a strong opinion on any of it.
Fantastic. That's good. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear then. That's good to hear then.
There's plenty of people who do not know how to use tech, and it's actually no. Most of all, people do not understand how time zones work. Woof, definitely not. Definitely not. It's just people really can't wrap their heads around it at all.
Yeah. Well, that was
the most common thing.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was throwing back and forth with Ilona just to make sure that, because anyways,
that wasn't a dig at you, by the way.
No. I know, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Especially with GMT and BST, it's like, what? So that's a loner's job. I put my hands up and just go, that's a you problem.
Let's talk about quickly. So you've put all the stuff together. So you've put the Drummer's Toolkit together, which is all the videos that you've done. That's available. You're also doing Drummer's Songbook. What wants you to move towards explaining songs? I'm curious. Is that also sort of a natural?
So first of all, New Drummer's Toolkit was a playlist I created on TikTok, and I think somehow it's magically been deleted by TikTok. So I'm trying to sort that out.
Okay.
But basically, if you go to the book, it's all still linked and everything. But that's for beginner drummers, and it gives you basically the most basic form of every groove fill that you're gonna need, and rudiments and all that stuff, which is really useful because you can just go, here's the thing, it's free, go check that out. The New Drummers Songbook, the idea behind that was, well, we were working with Hit Like a Girl, and I started my association with them, and the whole idea of it originally was to just do teaching people how to play famous songs, because, you know, people want to learn how to play famous songs. And for me, it really... the format of that in terms of like note for note, how to play everything correctly with the sheet music, and it just, again, it harks back to like, just say the thing. What do you need to know? What as a drummer, you don't want to go, okay, how do I play this note for note? I've got a gig in 2 hours. How do I play this song? What's the structure? You know. Right. So I approached it from that perspective, and so it's not only like, okay, here's the structure kind of, and like this is the beginning, end, important bits, right? That's the main groove, right? Here's what you need, and then if there's like exercises that you'd need to be able to develop the skill to be able to do that thing, then that's what I tell people. Or like, what can you play that sounds kind of like the right thing, or makes you stylistically appropriate, or like that drummer? What makes that drummer, and what can you do instead of, here's how you play this song note for note, because it's just, that's not real. Really.
So you're doing sort of a virtual cheat sheet, if you will.
Essentially. Also because I just can't be asked to learn the songs. I haven't got the time. I've never been a song gal. Which is a bit odd to say as a drummer, because most drummers learn, you know, playing to songs. But I learned how to play in bands, playing things that I'd learned from exercises, and it kind of, the two
meshed together. Right.
But I've never been the kind to be a stickler for like, he plays this fill specifically and does this and which I know a lot of people are, but I'm just not.
That's fine.
And so I quite like the format of that. I was just like, what do you need to know? Here it is, and here's an exercise if you can't do it yet. Like that was the whole idea behind all of it. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Very nice. Well, that is different. Exactly. That is refreshing, because like you say, sometimes you just want to learn the basics of it and go with it, you know, and have fun with it. So,
exactly. And it's about getting people playing the song kind of as quickly as possible. It's been on a bit of a hiatus at the moment, because it's just, life's been going on, and I've been, you know, sorting out membership things, and like just life is happening. But I'm planning on getting back into it, and I think I might start to, instead of doing individual songs in the videos, I think I might do like 3 famous songs from certain bands. So things like AC/DC, you don't need 3 separate videos for those 3 songs, if that makes sense. Like it's kind of a debate really. Like we
Well,
don't know wise
yeah.
what the internet will like the most. That's the only issue. Because people like long videos now. They want to sit down, get comfortable, and look at this 40-minute, half-hour video instead of these bite-sized things. That's kind of
Well,
what's
yeah,
changed.
yeah. We're in that format. I mean, we're up to an hour 10 now, so we're in
Yes,
that. So
yes.
we're in that format.
Oh,
But most people from our audience are a bit older. But what they do is they listen to us, or they have us on the web, and they're doing something else or sort of thing. So
well, it's
yeah,
second. This is
yeah,
perfect second monitor content.
yeah.
So if we're on your second monitor right now, hello, I'm talking about you. Hello.
Don't ignore us.
Yeah,
But
keep focusing on that thing you should be doing and putting your full attention on. Yeah. Brain can't actually multitask, can't actually do that. Don't fool yourself.
This is great. Okay, and quickly. Well, okay, so that's interesting. So in other words, people want to know about that the drummer's songbook and new drummer's toolkit. They go to the Alpyne website to find those things.
So depending on where you are in the universe, in the internet worlds, if you're on Instagram or social media, there should be a link in all the bios where you can get to a link tree which has literally everything on it, or you can look up Alpyne music and it should all be there as well, along with my memberships and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome. So, and lastly, you are part of a band with, of course, someone that you met, you say, through going to studies. Yeah. And I hope to say this correctly. And but I don't know, Mayu.
Yes, there we go. Yeah. I say it Mayu because I'm
Mayu. Okay.
It's spelled Mayu.
Okay. Actually, the last name sounds French. Actually, in French we say Mayu, but yeah, interesting.
It's funny because Alona is technically French. She's of French descent, but she's the most British French person you will ever meet. Her family's French, but she can't speak French, which bothers her greatly. And we poke fun at her all the time for it.
That's great. So you're part of you're part of a band. So talk to me about that group and the music from that group.
Yeah, so I just over the years have kind of picked up different bands and groups. Obviously we do, as drummers, we just end up doing function work, musicians as well. But Alona's one of the originals bands. We've been going since I think about 2019. And it's kind of indie rock. We've been compared, because we've got a female front woman. We often get the Evanescence kind of / Fleetwood Mac / all sorts of stuff. It's kind of quite hard to put us in a specific category. Box. But indie rock, we generally try to kind of keep with. We're kind of with newer stuff, which hasn't been released yet, but we're getting there, lads. It's starting to get a bit more proggy. Which is a bit fun, mixing up a little bit. And yeah, so that's kind of that one. But I'm doing so many different things. It's like Alona's been kind of in a bit of like a life-changing, building an extension on the house so life's happening. So music is taking a bit of backseat. But I've been in an indie rock, folk rock, pop, again, these kind of boxes we put these bands into. It's impossible, isn't it? But more kind of 70s rocky poppy band called Bryony Dunn and the Forest. So that's kind of been a nice change from doing hard rock. And also last year I went on tour with Ariel, the guitarist. She's often associated with Brian May because she has a signature guitar with Brian May.
Okay. Oh, cool.
And so I managed to do my first tour with her last year, and that was amazing. And we've got one hopefully coming up later this year. Fingers crossed.
You're all the way from Canada there.
Yes, yeah. And that'll be my first kind of it's not long, but like I think it's 3 weeks on the trot kind of stint, which will be really fun. I'm really excited about that if that all goes to plan. Fingers crossed. Cool.
Is it an acoustic kit or an electronic kit for that tour?
It's all acoustic. I have a bit of like about playing electric kit on live gigs. The last time I did was a theatre gig, and that was just out of necessity for the amount of space we had, and I disliked it greatly. It's almost as much hate as I have for cajons. I'm not going to listen if you play a cajon. How power to you, my man. But I personally like my lower back as it is.
I know.
So I think also as a drummer, you just, if you know what drums is like, why would you do that to yourself?
I don't know. I guess because you're going on the metro to do a gig and you can't bring everything. I don't know.
Like I said, no disrespect to anyone who has a deep passion for cajon, but I am judging you deeply.
I mean, I've practiced on one for an acoustic set, and yeah. I mean, you got about 3 sounds on it, so yeah. It's not a drum kit. I know.
It just
it's okay. We won't say the word again. It's okay.
No swearing. That's it. Yeah. And why is there a J in it? Anyway.
Oh, I guess to get that snare sound to it, because if you hit it on top, you get that snare sound. Hit in the middle, you get that sort of bassy sound, which is.
I'm saying, why is there a J in?
Oh, sorry, I heard a chain. Sorry,
we're not speaking.
Okay. I mean, it's Spanish descent, I guess, and the J is always sort of I don't know. Maybe I'm being too serious right now. I don't know.
Or I'm about to get cancelled, one or the other.
No. Cool. Well, okay. So that was my question. What's the future for you? Which we've already answered. And basically, what do you hope to do basically besides the tour? And like, where do you want to take this from the next year or two?
The next kind of year or so is essentially, well, last year was building up the team of people around me to be able to make this sustainable, because I was talking about the editing and how much work it takes, and that's just the editing,
which is nicely done, by the way, because there's little effects as you hit the snares, and there's little spins things, and I think that's just so cool. Yeah.
It just adds that extra little something. Most of the time that's me, and sometimes it's Chris. It depends. But I find that's where when we're talking about personality, that's also personality. So it's just how much me can I condense into these videos. But yeah, what else is next? So this year has kind of just been trying to make the business of doing online content viable, fundamentally. And I don't think that many people probably talk about this, because you'd probably assume that, oh, you're an online social media influencer, you must be rolling in it, she says, currently still in her childhood bedroom. So that tells you everything you need to know. So that's what we're working out this year. And also, we've been trying to work out the membership, so it's kind of like a Patreon style thing. You can check it out if you're on the Alpyne website, and just how to make that. What can I give to people that's the most valuable, but sustainable for me?
Right.
So like the tiers at the moment, kind of you get all the videos that I've ever done in a bit more of an organized place where you can find them a bit better, and there's live streams and other discounts and good stuff like that. But we're currently working on essentially a 1-month thing where people essentially learn from nothing, not playing at all, to playing whatever song they want, essentially, with as much support as they need. So it's like potentially 2 lessons a week from me for a month, on top of having like a hotline where you can book in other lessons whenever you want. So we're just figuring out the details of that right now. And what it's going to take, and how many people we're going to need, and to do that, and again the team around that, and how to make it financially viable, or whatever. That's currently where that's all at. And so hopefully, this being a sustainable thing after 3 years, it's only just getting there.
I understand. We've been doing this for 4 years, and we're just getting to that point where it's people are tuning in every week, and
so you get it. So yes, it's not all kind of like people see the numbers and they just go, how are you rolling in it? And at YouTube especially, it's not the same as it once was. So it's all a bit more complicated than that now.
Well, that sounds like a great project, honestly. And I think the more we go, the more that's sort of necessary now for a working musician. To be honest, I think that's part of the deal now, if you will, is to be able to promote yourself that way, and to have an online presence. Basically, I think that's just
for sure. And now having an online presence is, unfortunately, as equally as important as how good you are at what you do. in a lot of cases. Some people, they don't need the internet at all, and that's a completely different. Same with musicians and bands. If depending on who you're aiming towards and who your target audience is, like there's bands that have an older demographic, and therefore they can kind of keep going without quite as much social media emphasis. But in most cases, you have to be a bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Sure. And to end it, where can people reach you if they're interested in lessons, in the drummer's songbook, and all the content that you're doing?
So on basically every platform, it's either Sounds Like Emma or Love to Learn Drums. And if you go to the Alpyne website, you'll see the memberships, the merch, the free ebooks. And if you don't want to even search that on the internet, you can just go to the top of our Instagram profiles and click the link over there, which has our link tree, which has got everything you're going to want to know in there. So hopefully, and all the descriptions of videos on YouTube as well should all be linked. Everything should be easy to find in theory.
Cool. Very much. Thank you so much, Emma, for talking to us. We're going to end there because if I continue, we might hit the 2-hour mark eventually. And I know
so much to say.
Yeah.
I did warn you.
That's okay. Maybe we'll have a part 2 in the near future when you're touring and stuff. But thank you so much for taking the time with us, and very lovely. And I'm wishing you the rest of a nice day. And thanks so much, man. All the best to you for the next year or two.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So have a good evening, and talk to you soon. Bye. So there you go. There's our episode for tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much to Emma for coming and talking to us. Until the next episode, all the best to you, and see you soon. Ciao.